Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is our 6th episode, and I'm joined by my good friends Villy
Good evening.
and Jody.
Bonjour.
How are you, gentlemen?
Father stayed out.
There you are. Just regular day here.
I think we're all suffering from different levels of fatigue and lethargy based on our respective weekends thus far. But let's hope we can up the energy a little bit for this discussion. I don't want to
Villy.
be the Matt of the group straggling at the back of the long walk, moaning and grumbling about everything. Okay, so first things first, before we get stuck into this week's episode, I wanted to call back to two little things from last week, and I don't know, I'll run this by you guys now live on air. This is something that I think we should do every episode. Is just if there's anything in the last episode we want to discuss, we just have a quick little reference to it. I think we've been doing that in most of our episodes anyway. The two things I wanted to bring up this time are that I mentioned last week that I think Lord Luke, that becomes the Slayer, is Lan's cousin. And Jody, I think you're going to delve into this later, but he's not related to Lan at all.
No, not at all.
He's Rand's uncle,
Yeah.
which is totally off the mark.
He's related to
and
somebody
then-
in the story. There you go.
And then I wanted to ask you guys if you gave any more thought to our most hotly discussed topic last week, which is Lan's ability to smell a burnt fade.
I can honestly say I have not thought about this at any length.
Maybe it's as a result of having to listen to it while editing and giving it another listen afterwards to listen to the finished product and really questioning my own thinking around that chapter. But I went back and I read it again, and I stand by what I think my interpretation was. And I mean, that doesn't mean that it's the right one, but that whole chapter, the whole footprints in the air, is about, Moraine lifting her hand to the air and sort of feeling something there, sensing Rand and Rand and Matt at least passing through Whitebridge. It's all about this sense of feeling the Shadowspawn and the boys and that sort of thing. And that's probably why my mind went the way that it did, in that Lan was also sensing the fade more so than straight up literally smelling him. But yeah, I don't know. I thought we sort of left that one dangling a bit last week, and at least in my mind, I feel comfortable with my interpretation. Again, Villy, that doesn't mean that I don't agree with yours, because I like the idea of Lan knowing what a burnt fade smells like because he's done it a bunch of times. But that's where I ended up.
Well, hopefully someone will send us some fan mail, pop it in there, give us your interpretation.
Yes, if you have the definitive answer on whether Lan knows what a burnt fade smells like, send it to Moritz at bloodandashespodcast.com or go to our website and send us some feedback. It's not Bella at bella.bella.
I don't know why yet, but I'll keep the campaign going.
That costs money, Joe. Send me some euros and I'll set up Bella at bella.bella.
Sent.
Okay, so this week we're going to cover chapters 30 to 35, 30 being Children of Shadow and 35 being Caemlyn, which is a nice tantalizing chapter title to end off this pretty cumbersome and morbid stretch of chapters we're going to deal with here. Jody, I see you arcing up. You don't agree with me at all.
Sitting up straight. What?
How dare you?
These chapters were great. I don't understand your negativity towards this Matt and Rand journey, sleeping under hedges, playing for their food thing. I mean, we'll get into it. There's lots.
Yeah,
there.
we will. When we left the gang, the last chapter we read was Eyes Without Pity, where Perrin, Egwene, and Elias were camped out under the statue of Arthur Hawkwing in the steading. And that is where we pick up again this week with chapter 30, Children of Shadow. So, Villy, why don't you take us through that?
Yo, and what a meaty one this is. This is quite a big one. Now it starts off with him in the steading. Perrin finds his way down to the water, and immediately he's having some issues there. These thoughts that he had of ending Egwene's life if they were to be caught up by these crows. And also the hate for the axe all of a sudden that he has, with the thought that he might have ended a life using that axe. It was quite a deep moment there. And him and Elias has a little exchange out there where he thinks like Elias can actually smell what he's thinking, or can you even sense my thoughts? And he says, no, he hates the axe. Basically, he just wants to throw it in the water. And he's like, no, you'll use it again, boy. As long as you hate it, you will use it more wisely than more men would. Wait, if you ever don't hate it any longer, that will be the time then to throw it as far as you can and run the other way.
Yeah.
Quite a good little information there from the
Yeah.
ex-warder.
This theme is the one that carries on throughout the entire books, and eventually when he changes to the hammer and all of that, later on. So
That's
this is
quite
like the
right.
first mention of that hatred of the axe.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, they then, while they're having this exchange down at the water, Elias sort of switch over and runs up and shouts at Egwene, like, douse the flames, like, someone's coming. Obviously the wolves had warned him. And he runs up and grabs the kettle, burns his hands, but doesn't care. Just sort of gets the tea over the fire. Sort of,
I
it's
think Elias throws the kettle at him and he catches
yeah,
it and burns his hands.
he throws the kettle at Perrin and he sort of whimpers at
Yes.
catching it. Like, oh, fuck, what am I going to do with this? And he says, no, look, it's too late to hide the tracks. Like, right now, just you go either east or west, I think it was, but go, forget about me at this stage. And he runs in half wolf, half man with his silver thang, and him and the wolves go to town on this that's coming for them. And Perrin and Egwene then quickly saddles Bella, and again the axe is still prominent in that, like squeezing against his side, and still aware of the axe the whole time. They get going and go to a little outcrop, which turns out to be the statue's hand that obviously got toppled in sort of the hand. It's like to realize how big the statue was. And at that time already, they can see the torch lights and they can see they've split into groups. And the wolves saying they men, but they don't smell right. That's parents picking up. Like, what do they mean? Like, they don't smell right. It's kind of weird. They get up there, sort of into what I can imagine, sort of the fold of the hand with the fingers, sort of to hide out in there. And eventually the men sort of pick up their trail, a couple of soldiers, and come up to them there and say, oh, and in the panic, Egwene asks him, will he dance with her the following night? Just kind of like all of a sudden, like, oh, shit, this is whatever weird thing to say. And he's like, yeah, no, of course he will. But right now we must think either we're going to run or we're going to have to hide, type of thing. But they get spotted, and the soldiers comes and sort of surround them. And as Perrin comes out, they say to them, no, boy, drop the axe. You bumpkin, drop the axe, drop the axe. Who are you? And as that happens, was it Dapple that he feels sort of flying through the air?
Wasn't it Hopper?
Hopper, sorry, yeah. And flying through the air and takes two guys out at one, teeth crunching on their throats, ripping it out. But at that also, they impale her onto the ground.
Him? Her?
Isn't it her?
I know Dapple is the leader of the pack, and she's a female.
No, it is Hopper's a male, yes. He wanted to always jump and fly like the birds.
Yes.
And he flew there for the last time. And they killed him.
Yeah.
And he was saying, like, run, brother, run. Like, get out of here. And yeah, Perrin just filled with pain. He screamed a wordless scream that had something of a wolf's cry in it. Without thinking, leaped forward, still screaming, and they've been captured.
I think Perrin gets knocked out.
Oh, yeah.
He flies into them and he gets knocked out.
He kills two of them.
You find that out later when they're talking to Bornold. Spoiler cast, all good.
And yeah, they then get taken. And the next day, Perrin wakes up to sort of fuzzily realize his hog died, lying in a nice tent with a floor and sort of got furniture in. It's like, oh,
he's
these
glamping.
guys travel in style. He's glamping. And he sees Egwene there and Child Buyer.
Yeah, just to clarify, we're with the Children of the Light now, right?
Yep, Children of the Light. They turn out that they do smell bad because they have ill intention, those Children of the Dark Light. And yeah, he is reporting back to the Lord Captain that 23 were injured, 7 were seriously injured, 9 men dead, 30 horses had to be put down, they were hamstrung. And he sort of already, you can see this hatred, but he wants to ask the Lord Captain if, the wolf that they killed, they at least killed one of these massive wolves, and does he want a wolf rug? And Perrin almost growls at him at this thought, sort of, okay, maybe sort of hold it in. But he can see already how biased the hate he's got for him is kind of full of an enthusiasm for hate. vigor. But so it turns out
It's
this
a
is
good
now.
metal band name, Enthusiasm for Hate.
I'll listen to that. So yeah, it's old Lord Captain Bornald, the old man, old grey,
Mhm.
and he's sitting there. And he was then told that now there's probably about so many men, I can't remember how many, and probably 30 to 50 wolves. And he's like, yeah, I would say there was 6 to 8 wolves, maybe, child buyer. Perhaps no other humans than these two.
Mm.
You do have a true zeal, but no experience other than the cities. So
No.
just touch him down. And his face was kind of like unhappy about that. And again, sort of like taking it out on Perrin, almost wanting
Mm.
to smack him there. And then, yeah, they start the questioning, commenting on the axe, that it looks like that's definitely a weaponsmith's axe, perhaps even a master that made the axe. And again, his eyes burning darkly at the two prisoners. And no villager weapon, my lord captain, not a farmer's.
Mm.
And yeah, he introduces himself as Geoffrey Bornhold, and he's expecting them to treat them as the anointed and to speak properly. When Perrin sort of gets his tongue out of line, they wallop him on the side of the ear with the axe handle, and he feels the blood running down.
Quite hard. I think
Yeah.
parents, like, he notes like he might have died if he hadn't flinched out of the way and caught a glancing blow.
Mm.
Like I really noticed, and then like he swings the axe at Egwene as well, and she just dodges out of the way. I was taken aback at how violent Child Bayar is towards them, with Lord Captain Bornhold just
Yeah,
sitting there with steepled
he's a
fingers.
prime bastard. That one. He doesn't look like a.
Yeah.
So many baddies.
Yeah, and with like physical traits to back it up as well. Like he's got sunken cheeks and dark eyes, and he walks in his whole air. Like I mean, there's no subtlety in the way that some of these characters are described. And there's a couple more in the stretched chapters as well that I'll comment on. But like
Yeah.
Child Bayar as well. He walks in, and yep, I'm supposed to hate this guy.
Yeah, but now during this exchange, kind of, I think there's a lot of experience with the Lord Captain. He's seen a few things. He's had
Mm,
many years out there dealing with also the true dark forces that is out there, and then their perception of what is dark, suppose. And then he also pipes up. He's heard of this thing with men running with wolves, and like dark business, filthy business type of thing. And the parent cuts in. The wolves aren't, and he sort of almost takes his words back now and sort of slows down his voice because he doesn't want to catch another one on the head. And yeah, and they start the questioning, like, who told you that? And the queen pipes up, no, warder told us that. That's not an evil thing. And so he's like, oh, a warder also now. That's also creatures of the witches of Tarvalon, more dark friends, more filthy business. So he's going and he's running through all the things that is like, no, you've admitted to being an acquaintance of a dark friend warder, a third finger for carrying a coin of Tarvalon that most people would discard as quickly as they get it after leaving the city. You have got a fighting man's weapon while you're a farm boy. And, he's and about Trollocsome and Droll. So he's really sort of laying the case on them at the moment.
They should have just shut up.
Yeah, they should just shut up. And then they starts questioning, all right, give me the true story. And before Egwene could start preparing one of their lies, he actually hops in and says, no, this is we from the Two Rivers. And we went out on this quest to see Caemlyn, and we got sort of caught up and stayed at Shadow Logoth, which I shouldn't have said.
Yeah,
And
another thing.
just basically giving him more ammo as they're going along at that point.
such bad liars. They just trip themselves up completely.
Completely. And he's like, oh my gosh, like, you should have just shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Rather that it's like, oh, well, you must definitely be part of the Dark Friends because only Dark Friends know it as Shadow Logoth. And to the disappointment for Albaya, he's like, no, we'll give them back their belongings. We're not thieves. Keep the weapons. We'll take them to Caemlyn with us. And he almost sort of questions Bornald at this sort of, the penalty for Dark Friends is death in a flat voice, and sort of you might be suggesting stepping into a bug. There's there's no truce with the shadow. There's no mercy for Dark Friends. And he again applauds his zeal and says, I must often tell this to my son Dane. Have we met Dane?
Wasn't he in the city? Wasn't he in
He's the one
Verloc?
that Yeah, he antagonizes
Rand,
Rand and Matt, and he also
yes,
confronts them at the gate as they're leaving Balon.
that was the good slingshot that took out the
Mm.
barrels and got them all splattered in mud,
Yeah.
deservedly so. And yeah, no, it basically says that you have until they get to Caemlyn to sort of come to the light and give us the true story. Otherwise, they're going to be handed over to the questionnaires, which makes Baazil look like a candle beside the sun, which I can, phew, that must be bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, our heroes are captured and by the children of the light, or the dark white light.
That makes perfect sense.
And it's at the end of that little speech that he also says to Perrin, but for you, there's only a gibbet waiting in whatever their capital city is where the children are based,
Yes,
because he
exactly.
says you killed 2 Whitecloaks.
Yeah. But now that wasn't Perrin, was it? It was, because it doesn't say it. It was Hopper.
Ah, it was Perrin.
He looks at the axe when he says it. And I mean, Hopper killed one of them. And well, at least one that we know of, and a bunch of other guys got killed in the background. Like while Perrin is talking to those Whitecloaks while they're being taken, they can hear like a bubbling scream in the background as another Whitecloak is killed. So the wolves killed some of the Whitecloaks, but I think Perrin killed 2 of them with the axe, because he goes in and he swings the axe, and that's when he starts thinking of it as his one
Yes,
shining fang.
fang. Yes.
Yes, and that's when he gets knocked out.
Yeah, you can't really trust the Children of the Light's accounts of what happened, but I mean, everyone else in
No.
that group did see him do it. You know, and I think that's
Yeah.
I think that's what happened. It is the truth.
They do sound a little bit lawyerish in their approach of everything.
And I think, I mean, when Hopper, like his whole thing about the reason he's called Hopper is he wanted to fly and everything, and he does one final jump and he catches one of the guys in the throat before Hopper is killed. So Hopper only killed one. So, you know, Hopper can't be held accountable, or, you know, couldn't have killed 2 people that Perrin gets blamed for.
Yeah, but
I don't think.
From the previous chapter, they going and they just running from the crows, which is pretty intense. That is kind of exhausting. And then you get this little, it's evening and they are in the steading, and they're safe. It's going to be okay. Everything's great. It's going to be safe. And then it's not even enough time to boil a freaking kettle and make some tea. And they straight back at it again.
It's nuts. Elias even says this is not going to stop any men. And then Bob, the worst of men other than Dark Friends, rock up
everywhere,
and spoil everyone's shit.
I mean, in these chapters that we've read and the chapters that are upcoming, every town they're in, everywhere they're going, on the road, in the cities, Whitecloaks everywhere. So they're...
And Dark Friends.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Is there a difference between the two?
You know, if you're Rand, then no, there's no difference.
No. That leads to an interesting question that I had, which is the wrongness that the wolves smell on the Children of the Light. What do you guys think that is? Because they're just men.
I think it's their zeal. I think it's their
Exactly
blindness to seeing the world as grey. They only see black and white. You know, like, if you're not for us, you're against us.
Yes. Yeah. That's how I interpreted it as well. Like they are so set on the wrong path that they're almost crazy. Like it's a form of mania.
Yeah.
Because I think later in the books, the Perrin can actually sense that sort of thing about people as well, like their sort of their state of mind.
Yeah.
And I think the wolves pick up on these guys that are so like, the wolves are creatures of the dark. No, you fucking idiot. They're just animals. Okay? Relax.
That can talk to you if your eyes are yellow.
Well, Perrin didn't like Aram, so maybe you already had it back then with the Tinkers.
Maybe.
Was that it? Is that how the chapter ends?
Yeah, that's how the chapter ends.
Indeed, yeah. So that's our introduction to old Bornhold, who, while being the captain of the Dicks, is not such a bad dude. He's a grandfatherly figure. You know, he's not as extreme as the others. No. And it's a pity he doesn't hang around longer. But I suppose the books would be over sooner if he was there all the time. Oh, no, it's fine. Yeah, so we need some antagonists.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked him.
I also liked him in the beginning, but then his blindness to, you know, reality in I mean, he is a Whitecloak. So first of all, he's making questionable choices in
He's
life.
the Whitecloak.
He's not the Lord Captain Commander. He's
Oh.
just a Lord Captain.
I'm not really up to speed on all the ranks at the moment. I'll get there. Isn't
Yeah,
that
we will.
Pedron Nile or something?
Yeah, something like
Yes,
that.
that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's coming back to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I was taken aback by how violent they were towards them because, I mean, the concept of a fair trial is completely missing here, right? Like they've tied up these two children.
Yeah.
They are young people and they're just smacking them in the head with like an arm-long axe handle, the girl included. Like they try to hit Egwene.
Well, it's kind of what the mob would do back in the day if they had someone they wanted to get information out of.
Yeah, their zeal, Jody, that word is totally misplaced and burning, like they are zealots in the truest sense of the word.
I mean, your description of mania is that's probably what the wolves are smelling.
What else? I got one more thing I want to mention, but I don't want to just take over Billy's chapter.
Go for it.
When Elias, you spoke about this, Vil, when Elias asks, or he looks at Perrin looking at the axe, right? And Perrin is looking at this axe and he's hating it. Elias asks him, do you really hate her that much? And he's talking about Egwene. And I think what happened there, and then Perrin immediately says, can you read my mind like you read the wolf's minds? And Elias just looks at him sort of quizzically. And Perrin is already from like Burn and from some of the other wolves. He senses things like hatred and hate, kill, fire, like when the Trollocs and things are around. I wonder if Elias didn't sense the hatred from Perrin, but didn't know what it was aimed at and thought that maybe originally
it was
Perrin was looking at the axe, hating Egwene. Yes. But when they talk about the axe and he says his poignant sort of spiel about, it's good that you hate it. Hang on to it while you hate it. It's when you don't hate it anymore that you throw it as far as you can and run the other direction.
Perrin also replies there that, no, I love her.
Yes. Not like that, but yeah.
Not like that, but you know what I'm... Yeah, but no, but yeah.
Oh, if only Rand was here. He's so much better with girls and words and blah, blah, blah.
No.
Yeah, rough chapter. I mean, I still remember that from my first read about Hopper dying, how sad that was, even though you've only known them for like a couple of chapters. And also just how intense Child Bayar was and how violent they were towards the kids.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, shall we move along?
Let's go for it.
Okay, so the next chapter is at least slightly more lighthearted. It's chapter 31, Play for Your Supper. And we switch to Rand and Matt, with whom we'll be sticking with for the duration of the rest of the stretch of chapters, which is
much to the delight of Moritz.
I love reading about Rand and Matt. It's just this stretch, it's it's just so dire all the time. In fact, I conflated a lot of the scenes in my mind. Like when I read them now, I was like, oh wait, this happens, and where's the woman with the dagger? Oh, and then that comes later. Like I'd sort of squish this all into one like just phase that is bad. But anyway, Rand and Matt are traveling along the Caemlyn Road. This is after running away from Whitebridge, obviously, and Tom attacking the Fade. So they're traveling by themselves, and they're doing it tough. They're sleeping under hedges, and they're just ducking away from the road, hiding from people, trying to find a bit of work here and there on farms to just like get some food and a place to sleep. I think it's at this point that Rand also sort of condones Matt trying to steal eggs every now and then, which is it's totally normal for Matt, but a big step for Rand to just let him. And as they move along and they try and find this work and like trying to make their way along the Caemlyn Road, sometimes it works out and sometimes they will be run off by farmers with dogs, and the worst case scenario sometimes, or it happened only once maybe, where they've actually done all the work and then they run off the farm. So like everyone along the Caemlyn Road is wary of strangers, but also at times at least somewhat accommodating to having someone come help them. And one such family is what is it, the Grinwells? The Grinwell farm, where the boys go and do some work, and they're in the stable doing forking hay or like mucking stables or something, and the farmer's eldest daughter, who's just a year younger than Rand, give or take, is just hanging out there, basically swooning over them to the point where Rand has to like put on a shirt because he's embarrassed about the looks that she's giving them. And at the end of the day, like the farmer's like, you guys can stay here, obviously, and they're sitting and they have supper together, and Rand and Matt have I think they just had the idea to sort of like try and pay for the kindness that they've been shown, and Rand plays some music on Tom's flute, as best he can. And Matt does some juggling, and the family is wrapped. They love it. And the farmer dad is like, wow, this has been great. They will stay up later than they usually do, just listening to them play some, arbitrary songs. And he makes a passing comment that, he's paid more to see much worse at the inn in the next town. And that sort of, causes a little spark of an idea in Rand that maybe they can actually go to inns and use these things that Tom has left with them to pay their way. But then that night, like Mrs. Grinwell can read her daughter like a book. Like she sees Elsie sort of like swooning over Rand all the time, and then she offers for Rand and Matt to sleep in Elsie's bed, and Elsie can sleep with her parents or share with her siblings or something. And she's sort of put out by it. And the next day, she makes it known that she does not approve of this attention that Rand is getting, and Rand is just trying to deflect it. He doesn't want any of it. And as they leave the farm and they move to the next town, Matt is like also ribbing Rand the whole time in like old Matt style, just making fun of him. And so they cruise on to the next town, where they actually try their hand at playing music and juggling for money, and the innkeeper is quite okay with paying them, and they have some food and they have a bed to sleep in that night. And this poses a new opportunity for both of them to do this, and that's how they travel from then on. They're going from inn to inn. If there's more inns in a town, they can sort of play them off against each other. And sometimes it means they get two beds and they don't have to share a bed and that sort of thing. But that's basically what this chapter comes down to. It just paints the picture of the two of them traveling along, stopping at towns and inns and entertaining people for money. I think that's how that goes. Oh, and then it goes pretty smoothly until they reach Four Kings. And I think that's how the chapter ends.
Is there not a mention of that young boy in the morning? Is that not there?
No, that's still coming. No.
It's a different chapter.
Oh, they're all, like you said, these chapters all kind of string together. You never know what order they're going.
Exactly. Right. There's a lot of, I mean, some of the towns are named, but they all feel like these like nameless towns that they pass through, and there's multiples of them. And then, Robert Jordan dwells on some of them and others he doesn't. But at least at this point where we've finished this chapter, the boys are doing okay. They're traveling, they're playing for food, they're eating, they're sleeping in beds. Everything is hunky-dory.
Getting a little bit of strength back there. There's quite a few references again with Tam coming up in this stretch with Rand. Like a lot of the things, like there's a thought and they look at the town, it says, but it looks so much like home. And then sort of Tam saying, but it's not really home. Is it like, I'm not going to walk into a house there and find Tam there. And Matt, at a point, also is telling him maybe you should sell that sword. And he's kind of like, no, this is a sword that Tam gave me. Like a little bit of that holding on the whole time. And I think later on he also has a bit of fever dreams when he gets sick. And again, that sort of plays back to that whole opening night in the beginning when he carried Tam on the litter back to Emmonsfield.
Yeah, so there's this whole, we carry on with that theme of Rand missing home, and then also through these chapters we see these 5-6 chapters, Matt's slow decline into emo Matt, as the dagger starts affecting him more and more and more. He's constantly grabbing it under his cloak, he's grabbing it whenever somebody looks at him. He gives them like a skiff look, and he's holding on to the dagger. And Rand's really worried about him. So this gets more and more prevalent as we go along as well in these chapters.
Later, he's got a scarf wrapped around his head with only like his eyes sticking out at the bottom. And he's sort of like looking.
No wonder they chased them off the farms, man. Like, you got
totally. Also, Matt is a thief and a scoundrel.
Yes.
There's that part as well.
Indeed, he's not completely innocent in this.
Nah.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, not a lot. No, that's all set up. That chapter is basically set up for the next couple chapters
Yeah.
to show their progress along the Caemlyn Road.
And
Indeed.
also to give you a breather from the previous two chapters, that was pretty intense the whole way through.
And the next 3 chapters.
We've just come off the crows, and then the Whitecloaks kicking the shit out of the friends and killing Hopper, and now it's Matt making fun of Rand getting googly eyes from the farmer's daughter.
Yeah, in that farmer's daughter scene as well. He when he's finished playing, when Rand finishes playing one song, she looks and she goes, "Oh, you play so wonderfully." And her mother's knitting, and she looks up instantaneously and looks at her daughter and looks at Rand, and is just like, "I think the boys can sleep in your room tonight, and you can come and sleep in my room." And the girl's like, "God damn it."
She clicks.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
I don't like what's going on here.
This is harsh times. I'm not rearing no babies.
And then the farmer says something as well about them staying on a bit or something, and the mom is like, no, they'll be wanting to get out of here real early.
Yes, yes, indeed.
They'll want to make an early start. Okay, so I'm happy to move on. Not a lot of big picture stuff here.
Yeah, I did enjoy that that chapter as well. I like that lightheartedness with the family, and there's still good in the world, little bits of it.
I like, especially in this stretch, I like seeing Matt make fun of Rand. Like
Yeah.
that feels like old Matt.
Yeah, indeed. We don't get to see a lot of that coming up. So yeah, next chapter.
Chapter 32, 4 Kings in Shadow. Jody, go.
Lots of shadows, lots of chapters with shadow in it. So anyway, next town, 4 Kings. So Rand and Matt reach 4 Kings, which is another shithole. There's a lot of those along the way. I mean, they're all truck stops, basically, these towns along the way. But this one is just the worst. Kind of because it's got the Caemlyn Road and it crosses with the road to Tyr or something, I think. That's coming up from the south. I think it's one of the...
Probably Tyr as well. I mean, they're both down there.
Both from the south. Anyway, so it's like that big road coming up from the south and the Caemlyn Road cross at this place. And it's just full of the worst kind of people. Yeah, it's basically just a crazy trading post, tons of people, and they try their hand again at going to the inns. There's 4 different inns in this town that they check on at least, and when they enter it, when they come and look inside, the place is packed. They can hear music already playing, but you can't even hear the music. The people are drunk, and as they open the door to one of these inns, one guy vomits right on their feet. So they're like, this place is not, I guess it's not like the other towns. It's a real shithole. So eventually they go from inn to inn and they can't get work. And the first 3 and the 4th one, the dancing cartman. And then they open the door, there's no one in it. It's dead quiet. It's, the floors are dusty as fuck. Like, it's just the worst. And the first giveaway that you get is that the innkeeper is skinny. And this is where,
God, get out.
Get out.
Run for the hills. So this is where Rand's thing comes from throughout the story about never trusting a skinny innkeeper. This guy, I have his name here, Hake. That's it. His name is Hake, the innkeeper. So the boys don't dig the vibe at all in this town. But anyway, they're trying their luck going again. Trying to get a bed and some food by playing and entertaining the guests. But this is also where you see Matt's becoming more and more introverted and negative about everything. So they speak to Hake in this inn. He's got these 2 big bouncers as well, Jack and somebody else. Yeah, Strom, Oaf number 1 and Oaf number 2. Same things. So this Hake just looks like a dark friend straight away when you see him. So they make a deal for some pallets in the back. He's not keen on having them, and he doesn't they even want to show let's listen to how I play, and he's like, it doesn't matter. Like, these people, my customers are not going to care. Like, don't worry about it. So he's like, yeah, well, the deal is crap. We'll give you some pallets in an old storeroom. Like, you're not even getting a bed, and you'll eat when everyone leaves. And they're like, no. Listen, we don't do it like that. You'll feed us first, and then we'll sleep on the pallets if they're clean, whatever. He's like, yeah, fine. And he gives the bouncers this kind of look, and and then kind of like nods towards Rand and Matt. And so there's something going on there already, because he gives a skiff look as well at the sword that he's got, and then eyeballing it, so you get the feeling like this guy's not to be trusted. Rand notices it. He mentions it to Matt as well, like at one point during the evening when they're playing. He's like, I don't trust these 2 bouncers and this Hake guy. They're going to try and rob us tonight. So during the night when they're playing, a huge storm hits, and there's like this is where your tension starts building again. Your happy times at that family farm are over. Lightning strikes outside, lighting up the room, and the room, the inn is eventually packed with people getting drunk and just being nasty and slapping the maids' butts as they walk past, and the serving ladies and everything. So just the worst kind of people. And in walks this guy, dark friend, head to toe, dressed in velvet, like with velvet slippers and a velvet cloak and a velvet, just the sleazeball of note. Immediately, when I saw he was dressed in velvet, I thought of Zap Brannigan. He's the lure. But just like an intelligent, but just as sleazy Zap Brannigan. Dark friend from the house. And he looks around the room, and as soon as he sees them, he's like, recognition all over his face and the slimy smile. And he finds a seat and sits down. And he's like, yes, I've found them, And Rand's like, oh, cock. And at this point, Matt is just eyeballing everyone with a dirty look. He doesn't care what they think. And Rand's always like, dude, calm down. Stop looking at people like that. But Rand doesn't give a fuck. Matt, sorry, doesn't give a shit. So anyway, throughout the evening, they get a meal as well at the end, and then late at night, everything's done. They've played their set. The place is emptying out, and they go get their room in the back. So I'm going chopping up. This was a very long chapter, just getting to the meat of it. So at the end of the night, everything's finished. They get their pallet in the back, but Hake walks them to the room at the back with his 2 bodyguards. And there's just super tension this whole time. He's going to rob them now. Fuck. He's going to rob them now. He's going to do something. So Rand
down a long, dark corridor
to a storeroom with, in the back, it's all dirty and just the worst. Like they're trapped. They're absolutely trapped. As Rand even mentions during this point, he's like, he's never realized how much of a trap an inn really is. Like, if you can't get out through the front door, that's it, buddy. You're not going.
Because they were thinking of leaving like during the night, but
yes.
there's a bouncer at the front door, bouncer at the back door, and Hake and this other dark friend are just eyeballing them. They're not going to let them out of their sight. So Rand realizes they have to sort of play along and bide their time.
Yeah, he says as well, like, I'm not spending the night here. You got to be kidding. We're getting out of here as soon as everyone goes to bed. But that's not the case. I mean, at the end of the night when everyone clears out, old Goad is his name, Mr. Velveteen. He is still there. He's hanging around until the end. So he's after them as well. That's quite clear. And this is another mention as well to, like, Rand recognizes all that velvet, and it's from Whitebridge. The merchants that were at the dock when they got off the boat of the sea spray. He sees all these merchants. So it's, they have a legitimate reason to be traveling up and down. They're merchants, but clearly dark friends.
You even brought it up in the last episode when they were in Whitebridge. You were like, is there some significance to talking about their velvet clothes and their velvet slippers? And we were like, no. It's just
turns out
it directly ties back to this guy.
So he's still there at the end. Everybody's there at the end. They walk them down to their room. I use that word liberally, room, their prison, and put them in there for the night. And when they leave eventually, Rand closes the door, but then peeks out later, and one of the brutes, Jack or Strom, whichever, is there at the end of the hall. So he's like, okay, shit, they're absolutely trapped. And they look in this room. There's no lock on the door. They can't close it. They look at try and get out the window as well. Like, oh, there's a window. We'll sneak out, but it's got bars on it. So it's literally a prison. And they're going to be trapped here. So they've got Hake and his buddies, and they've got Goad, who's the dark friend as well, after them. And so they found some splints or whatever that they stick it under the door. They manage to jam the door closed, but then they hear a knocking on it. They hear people coming down, and they think it's Hake. So they're like, Hake, leave us alone. We want to sleep. But it turns out that it's Goad. And Goad and his men have taken care of Hake and the other two. We're not going to be an issue, but I mean, they probably would have fancied their chances with Hake rather than this guy and all the men he's brought. Yeah. And he's saying through the door, you belong to my master. So this is where we get confirmation that, of course, this guy is a dark friend. And he seems to be more than just some random dark friend. He seems to be, in charge of some people, like I don't know, a regional manager of dark friends. And they start trying to break down the door. And this is like the tension's finally culminating because you get that, through the whole night of everybody eyeballing them and the lightning and the storm. And they're trapped in this little room, and they're trying to crowbar the window open, and it won't work. And we got to get out. And the room fills with light. And this is where Rand channels lightning for the first time. Now, kind of this is like from my gaming experience, this is at least, grandmaster level magic spells. And it's not like your level 1 spells. Lightning comes through. He channels lightning through the window that they're trying to break out. It fills the room, blows them out of the way against the sides of the walls, and blows the door that they're trying to break down, and kills Goad, blinds Matt in the process. And when they get up, they're all dazed and confused, but there's a big hole in the wall for them to escape now. And it's pissing rain outside, and they run into he grabs Matt and running into the night. And then that's when Matt realizes, like, holy shit, I'm blind. I can't see anything. And they stumble off into the night and into the rain, trying to escape. They turn back and they do see somebody shaking their fist at the sky or at them for causing so much cuck. But we don't know who it is. But later, I suppose we find it's not Goad, because he is he's with his master later on. But yeah, that's where we leave this chapter. Like, they've destroyed the inn. They've managed to escape. Rand is channeled seriously for the first time. I mean, previously he channeled a bit into Bella in one of the first chapters that we recall. He tried to, to make Bella run a bit faster. But this is some serious...
We think he channeled on the sea spray with that boom that crushes the Trollocs' chest.
Right. Third time. True. All right.
But Rand, I mean, to your point about, like, this is a Grandmaster level spell, Rand has a level 10 Battle Mage in his head.
He does.
That's another one of those plot lifelines that they can throw out at any time. Like, yeah, but Lews Therin can take care of that, like, subconsciously.
And this is something I wanted to go into as well. Like, how much influence does Lews Therin have over him, and how much control does he have? Because clearly that's not Rand doing that. You could argue it's instinctive, but we know from these first early books, at least, that Lews is literally another person in his head talking to him. But to what level is that? His madness or his imagination, or is it Lews?
Now, I mean, that's the question, right? Like, that's how it's posed throughout the entire series. Is Rand going mad, or is Lews Therin actually manifesting in his head? And every single line of internal dialogue that is in italics, I read now as Lews Therin.
Me too.
I'm always looking at it through that lens, and sometimes it fits really, really well. Like we spoke last episode about Lews Therin posing the question, like, sometimes the hero doesn't win. Are you a hero, Rand al'Thor? Are you a hero, Sheepherder? I mean, that seems like someone else talking to him. But yeah, I get the sense that Lews is talking to him. Rand doesn't realize it's someone else. He thinks it's his own inner voice, because why would he think anything else?
Yeah.
But I don't know how much control Lews has over him. I mean, at one point later in the stories, there is actually a sort of battle for control between the two of them. Lews tries to take over and actually does channel sometimes when Rand is not intending to. So, I mean, there could be a bit of that already, like just sneaking through.
Yeah.
As Lews becomes more and more manifested in Rand as a fully formed consciousness, because Rand is still starting to develop his powers, and those could be tied.
I suppose this will happen with every reincarnation of the dragon, because when they begin, I suppose they know nothing, and they got to have some sort of backup in place to keep them alive until they do know what's going on and how to channel and all of that. So the previous dragon is there before. Just unfortunately, Rand has Lews, who's a complete fucking maniac in his head.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah,
to say the least.
Yeah, they're on the back foot.
Yeah.
Is it just
the
me
male channel is
that's picking up that the dark friends that are being sent after the boys are like the straggling scraps of dark friends that sort of gave over to the dark side and got some power, and they got some money because they're all dressed in velvet, and the woman was also in a beautiful dress, and even down to a little boy that was so scared of the two of them, who's blind and injured and wrecked, tired and freezing, but they're still getting out of the situations.
Look, I mean, I had the same thought, Vinny, and my interpretation is that there are obviously dark friends everywhere, and right now they're in the country, right? So the level of dark friend you're getting here is country dark friend, with the odds, well-to-do, quote unquote, well-to-do merchant or some lady of means. But I think what they're trying to do specifically in this stretch of chapters as well is show that anyone can be a dark friend. It could be the likes of Samuel Hake, who I don't think is a dark friend. I think it's just
no, it's just a thief.
in my notes I have him as a contemptible asshole, and
that's polite.
And I think they're just showing that it can be a young boy, it could be a lady of means, it could be a merchant, it could be anyone, just to sort of keep you on your toes, showing you different types of dark friends that could be around, because you're not supposed to be able to identify them. For all the talk we've been doing about
Yeah.
how obvious it is who you hate, Robert Jordan does go through some length to show that it could be anyone.
Yeah, and there's a lot more of them than you would think. They're everywhere, and at every level of
Fucking
society that
everywhere.
they've influenced every level.
Yeah.
So later
Yeah.
on, we know, of course, there's the Black Aja. So they're even amongst the Aes Sedai. They're amongst the royalty. They're everywhere.
Yeah. Aren't they in the Children of Light as well? Aren't they?
Maybe that's why they smell wrong.
This is me. This is me extrapolating to the nth degree, but I seem to remember being shocked that they're even there.
I would think
Some of
so.
those inquisitors or something.
I mean, they've infiltrated every level of society over thousands of years. So yeah, Children of the Light, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Right, and that's how it ends. Them stumbling into the night in the rain, trying to run away. Matt's blind. Rand doesn't know what the hell just happened. He just thinks he's so lucky that lightning struck exactly where they were standing at that moment when they needed to escape. And off they go.
Yeah. Yeah. What else did you get out of that, Vil?
Now, definitely, Gode was destroyed by the lightning and all of his men.
He had a bunch of men outside as well. He had multiple carts, didn't he?
Mm.
Rand goes outside at one stage and he goes in the rain to go look when one of the bouncers, corners him at the door to the kitchen as well. Rand goes outside and he sees one of those black carts with the name on it, exactly like the merchant's carts that we see in Whitebridge.
They were lying down, legs sprawled, eyes open, staring at the heavens. Kind of drops falling in the eyes. No way can tolerate that.
Yeah. Or with their feet towards the inn, so it creates this image of like the lightning striking and blasting everything outwards, and including the people that were anywhere near it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They got smothered.
Rand himself gets flung against the wall, and Matt gets covered in debris from the roof and stuff. And the two of them hop up and run off, and everyone else is dead as disco.
Yeah. Well, I think if it was Luz, he was precise with what he was doing. He wasn't just randomly chucking lightning bolts. He probably aimed at Gode.
Yeah. And Matt says he was looking at the window when it hit the window.
Yeah.
Which is why Matt is blind.
When I read this the first time, I was like, man, that's just now getting to stupid blind luck. Not even thinking that there's anyone involved in this throughout all of this, except for where they said Bella needed no healing after that first run out of Emmonsfield. Then you're like, oh, okay, someone did something. But this moment there never crossed my mind that Rand did that. It was kind of the storm was there, and oh, what blind bloody luck that lightning saved them. It's like almost like, come on, man, it could have been a little bit better.
Hey, remember our favorite plot armor, Taverin?
Taverin.
They are just inherently lucky, So I guess that's part of what is being done here is sort of obfuscating, the true reason for anything happening. Could be because they're Taverin, could be Rand's channeling. I mean, you're not supposed to know any of this stuff the first time you read it. You're not supposed to know that Rand is the Dragon Reborn. You can start piecing a couple things together already, but it's not said outright that Rand can channel. So yeah, when you read this, it's not. Although in saying that, I think I remember from the first time thinking, fucking A, Rand, you exploded that building real good.
Yep. You want a door? Here's a door.
Yeah. Have a door.
I was also impressed by Rand in when they get led down the narrow corridor and the tension is ratcheting up. You feel trapped already. And when they're walking down the corridor and they're let into that room, Rand immediately starts looking around. Okay, what can we use to bar the door? And they find the wood splitters and stuff, and he kicks it under the door. But he waits for the thunder, like in a real Shawshank Redemption. He's waiting for the thunder to happen. And as the thunder, or the lightning claps, he kicks it in. And they do the same thing with the crowbar that they find. They wait for the lightning and the thunder, and then they try and creak it, and it makes a noise because it's screeching the metal. They're trying to bend it like a quarter of an inch at a time. And at one point Matt drops the crowbar, and it's like, fuck guys, things are looking rough. And then they start ramming the door in, and you get the sense of the trap closing in on them, and that's obviously what triggers in Rand this lashing out as well. The same thing as on the spray when the Trolloc was about to skewer him. And, he was going to die. That's when he was able to, again, quote unquote, do something to save himself.
The pattern's trying to keep the dragon alive for as long as possible.
It's trying its damnedest.
Succeeding.
Yes, thus far.
Yeah. Anyway,
Okay. Should we move on?
let's
Let's
do it.
do it.
All right, Villy, why don't you take us through chapter 33, The Dark Waits?
Oh no, this is one of those moments in the movie where it's the next day all of a sudden. They've gotten out of the Four Kings, and Rand kind of wakes up on the back of a straw cart, and they sort of just being dragged along. Master Kinch had picked him up somewhere, a leathery-faced man, and they just going on. The Matt is as blind as anything; he can't really see. He's got his eyes covered throughout most of this, and yeah, not a hell of a lot. Like Rand asking Matt if his eyes still hurting. Matt's like touching his scarf. It's like, no, not as much, but I can see a bit, but it feels like you're looking straight into the sun. So it's obviously got a bit of arc eyes there, I'd say.
Yeah.
Not a fun thing to have, speaking out of experience.
Your backyard welding has prepared you well for this chapter.
Yeah, definitely. And Master King sort of, they noticed that there were some guards coming past with like pointy helmets, and him saying, no, that's the Queen's guards. They just keeping the peace. There's a lot of people on the road. Eventually, he drops them off. He gets to a point where he's going to turn up a road, and sort of, you've got kind of half a day's walk or something to the next village. This is as far as I'll go now. And he actually says to them, like, look, I can see you guys has been through something. I've got no one at the farm if you wanted to take 2 days to come and just recover. Like, you looking sick. Like, at was this in this section now?
It's confusing, isn't it?
Yeah,
they
because
drop
there's
you sort
a
of in
few-
media res.
There was a
This
few of
chapter
them
jumps. I mean, this chapter starts with later on, and then it goes back to how they got to where they are at the beginning of the chapter.
Yeah.
So it's all backwards. It's like a
We'll get to
Tarantino
that. I
film.
don't know why. Yeah.
Yeah, for the first time there. No, it is. It says you can rest up for a day or two at my place, and you won't miss any time or whatever your sickness says. You overget young fellows. Well, the old woman and me, we've about had every sickness, so we're quite all right. And Matt's already not trusting him. He's like narrowing his eyes, and it's kind of like, and Rand's got every now and then sort of remind him like, hey, not everyone is bad. It's again that every now and then there's a good person that comes around. But politely says now how far's the next village, and that's Craisford, and they should reach it before dark walking. So they head off and they keep walking up there, and when they eventually hit the village, they definitely need a place to rest. They're knackered now. It's been walking, carting, just tired. Sorry, I was picking up here quickly on my notes.
Time jump confusion.
Yeah, big time confusion.
I know, me too. I had to go back and forth a couple times to go, wait, lots of farmers on carts on the same road.
So many.
This one gave him a scarf. This one gave him a ride. This one, it was a bit weird.
Yeah, it was a little bit weird because there isn't really any parts that I can remember where they do this bit of time jump.
No.
Going forward into it. Maybe it was experimentation. It's like, nah, that failed.
Yeah.
let's leave
Okay,
it at that.
Let's get into it. We're talking about it now. So, I mean, I also, like, it's the first time that I can remember in the book. I don't think this has happened thus far, where he does sort of like a, okay, this is what's happening now, but this is, and then it skips back to this is how they got here. So when I read it, I was like, also a bit confused because, it sort of blends together a little bit, a lot of farmers and carts, like we said. But then I thought, okay, maybe he's trying to set the timeline or something. But that's also not the case. You could literally tell that entire stretch in chronological order and not lose anything. There's no like reveal or anything. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the point of that was.
Maybe he's just trying to mix it up, break up this monotonous rhythm of going from town to town. It didn't work.
You took one stretch and put it in front of another one. And it's the same thing.
Maybe when they printed, a page slipped from one side to the other side, and they're like, "Oh well, we've printed a big bunch of these. Like, screw it, they can survive these 2 pages. That doesn't make sense."
Yeah.
But
so cue flashback.
Cue flashback. Now they back and they under the bush and the lightning striking up ahead, and they sort of reminder that he's go dead and what's happening. And eventually Matt drags Rand Rand drags Matt under a sort of hedge, put up their cloaks, and just pass out. Time just to go to sleep. This was too much. And that's when Rand starts dreaming. And our old antagonist is back there and saying, yes, old, but did you find me? You deserve some reward, don't you think? And Rand turned and he discovered that he was afraid, even knowing it was a dream. But Zalman's clothes were the color of dried blood, and rage and hate and triumphant battle in his face. Like, it's obviously that didn't go to plan for him. He's pretty bleak at that. The night before, you should rather say. Yeah, so Rand is dreaming through that, but he also gets very aware that he's dreaming now. It's real now. Every time he knows he's dreaming, he is getting used to controlling a little bit of that and not giving away where they are. But he says he's just going to keep on getting them. They'll never get to the eye of the world. The eye of the world will never serve him. And Rand wakes up from that. He's soaked wet through his cloak, ice cold, and skin is feeling tender and burned, and they kind of just get on going. Okay, so Matt was also having a dream at that stage, and something happened to him in his dream, because they don't elaborate on his dream, and he sort of woke up screaming, my eyes, oh, light, my eyes, he took my eyes.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's some foretelling to something that may come again.
Mm-hmm.
And Rand sort of held him and cradled him up, and as if he was a baby, and said, you're all right, you're all right. He can't hurt us. We won't let him. You could feel how Matt was shaking and sobbing through his coat. He can't hurt us, he whispered, and they moved on. What protects you makes you vulnerable. Am I going mad? Again, there, that inner dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Rand? Is that Lewis? Who knows? And yeah, they get up and going, and they get rides on the wagons, and this is where you kind of pick up again. Now, this is where you see again Master Kinch. His name pop up later, so possibly not a mixing of pages, but quite a weird one how they laid that out. And yeah, they basically keep going until they get to the next town, where the innkeeper, Rulan Alwine, a good omen, was a big man.
Sweet.
a good big innkeeper. And at that stage, they sort of negotiate for a room. Everything is expensive, and they kind of like still taking it to the point like, well, what do you want to do? Sleep under a hedge or get some food into your belly? And they ate, savoring each bite, and went to sleep even in their wet clothes. Rand didn't even take his sword off, because he just wants to be able to, if something happens, get up and run. And the next morning, get down. They had a fairly good sleep, happy that none of Goad's men followed them and could have tracked them down. And that's when they notice the young lad, Peter.
They describe him as young, but I think he's like a year or two older than Rand.
Yeah,
he's a young man.
Young man, but he looks very sort of shaken, almost like, oh shit, I don't want to do this. But he stands there, and there's just an old man sweeping the inn on the inside of the inn, and he comes closer, and but immediately there's no trust from Matt. Sort of Matt just belts out, dark friend. Get the fuck out of here, dark friend. Go. And Rand says, no, just leave us alone. We want nothing to do with them. We just want to get moving on. And Matt tells, if you don't, quite fiercely, I will name you for what you are and see what your village friends think of that. And he seems to take the threat seriously. He starts growing pale. And I heard what happened in Four Kings. He tells them, some of it anyway. Word travels. We have ways of hearing things. But there's no one here to trap you. I'm alone. I just want to talk. So they get up from having their breakfast and start moving out. And that's when he sort of tries to talk again, and Rand punches him like flat on the nose. Knocks him back. And then he shouts to them, oh, you won't get away. He spat angry. No matter how strong you are, the great Lord of the Dark is stronger. The shadows will swallow you. And sort of they get out.
He's shouting at them.
Shouting sort of with a bloody nose.
Real smooth. Better. Way to keep it on the download.
And as they get out there, Matt's also like, blood and ashes, man. It's they're always there. They're always right on our heels. We'll never get away. And they keep going, and it's again sort of cart and rolling up and between lifts on a cart and getting going. They eventually make it to the Queen's Man. And Matt decided he'll demonstrate his juggling skills, 3 balls, and Rand played a bit for the flute there for the innkeeper. And the innkeeper there decided, go grab something to eat. And that is where Rand gets sick. He sort of, starts stuttering. Sorry, Matt, like, I just can't, like, teeth clattering, all of a sudden going into fever. And Matt does the negotiation then to sort of let the innkeeper not chuck them out the front door, because he'll tell them and he'll lose all his patrons that there's sickness in the place, and gets to go out the back door and into the stable, and couldn't get Rand up into the hay loft, and sort of just give him a place to sleep and rest for the night. And there's no wisdom there, but there's a mother, Brune, but she's busy birthing a baby. But the chills came over Rand the whole time. He had a terrible sort of night ahead for him. And he almost like Holland grabbed his sword, and he thought in the shadows he saw fades, but there was nothing. Sort of, there's nothing. There's nobody but us. Like, and then that comes up again. Like, he's my father. You don't understand. No, I have to keep it. So he's in fever dream state and passes out, I think, eventually. And then he sees Egwene stepping out of the shadows. It's a very confusing.
Yeah, he's pulling Tom on the litter through the forest, and there's a fade with Lan and Moraine's heads hanging off its side, pulling Perrin and Egwene on leashes behind him, and all kinds of crazy.
Yeah, and they're all saying, "You killed us! You killed us!" It's a crazy dream. I wonder if that was just fever dreaming. If there's something else that you could put into that
post-channeling fever trip, is
yeah.
Oh, obviously that exhaustion hit him, because I mean, every time Moraine had to do really big channeling, there's a big emphasis on how tired she gets. And
I think this is also just like Jody's saying, like, because Rand channeled, he gets that thing that Moraine was explaining to Nynaeve about how after you've channeled the first time, or like a big weave, you get fevers and chills, like it happened to Nynaeve. Like, it's a direct reaction to actually channeling the one power.
Yeah, all right, that makes more sense, because
without training, what happens to
without training, yes, it's the thing that kills you. It's the thing that happens more and more closely to the actual channeling until they happen at the same time. And when that happens, Moraine says it's like starting a clock to your death, like usually a year or two later.
Right, so this is his start. So that was definitely then.
Yeah,
I think so. After him channeling a massive amount.
Yeah, this is what confirms the lightning. This is how we know it was him channeling the lightning, because he gets the channel sickness.
The chills.
Yeah, easily also confused with them being soaked, walking in the rain.
Yeah,
and
that didn't help.
Him
I think.
just getting pneumonia or something and getting really sick.
Yeah.
And purposefully so, I'm sure.
Yeah, but yeah, it could definitely be. But I mean, throughout all of this, there's person after person that comes into this dream, and to the point where Matt comes in and says, "I just read easy, Randall Thor. I'm here, and you're Randall Thor. That's who you are, with the ugliest face and the thickest head in the 2 rivers. Hey, you're sweating,
Our friends.
The fever's broken.
Oh, Matt.
Oh, Matt." So, then from that in the morning, they wake up, and then a woman strolls in. Like, let's just get the dark friends rolling on. And
who's next in the queue?
Who's next in the queue? And she appears to be sort of, now she just came there to get her horses. And she's, but are you okay? You look ill. And he's like, no, it's all right. Matt said stiffly, he just caught a chill from the rain. That's where I was thinking the first time reading as well. Like, I just sincerely got sick. And
that's what Matt genuinely thinks as well.
And she's like, no, I know a few things. Let me have a look. But before she gets there, she sort of at the end whips out a dagger and goes straight for Matt, who manages to sort of dive out of the way. And she stabs the dagger into the barn wall, or one of the pillars or poles in there. And Rand sort of sees this, and actually how it's burning the wood. And in that same moment, Matt, who's always seems to be fingering his dagger, has got the dagger out and against the throat and sort of, just give me a chance, I'll cut your throat. And they don't want to murder her. It's kind of like now that point, like, what do we do? Do we just kill her? Or
Matt does. Matt wants to kill her.
Matt wants to end
Yeah,
her.
you know what Matt wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, Rand had to actually say, like, whoa, whoa, he sees that look in his eyes, like, don't kill her, bro. Like, just take it easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but and he shouts out, like, she tried to kill me. And she tried to kill you. She's a dark friend. And it's like spitting out the words. But Rand sets a little bit of calm there in him. And yeah, they tie her up, and the journey and the run continues.
More carts.
More carts.
Yeah, Matt pushes her into a room, and while she's trying to explain to him, he just slams the door in her face and
Yeah.
bolts it shut, and they walk off.
Yeah.
I don't want to listen to anything you say, woman. Yeah.
No.
Dark friend.
I love that Matt, even with his compromised eyesight, had the reflexes to dodge her knife thrust, catch her by the wrist on the hand holding the knife, and get his knife out and hold it to her throat. Like, again, the boys can handle shit.
And they and just take it into, he's half blind still.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's spent the whole night awake.
Yeah. Looking after Rand, sleeping, sitting up with his chin on his chest when he did sleep.
Yeah.
The woman seems to have a reaction when she notices Matt's dagger. Did she recognize it for what it was? Because she stayed absolutely still, like her eyes widen when she sees it. And I don't know if that's just a natural reaction to having a dagger at your throat, or if she recognized it somehow. I mean, no one, I almost said from the dark side, but none of the Dark Friends or the Shadow Spawn know that Matt took a dagger from Shadow Logoth that potentially could be housing some power of Mashadar or more death or anything like that.
Yeah,
Do they?
It's just said she nodded slowly, and her eyes never left Matt's dagger.
Okay.
It's but they do go quite into depth with her dagger, which is, they say it looked ordinary, if ornate, with pale ivory hilt, narrow gleaming blade with no longer than the palm of a hand, just a dagger, only that it they could see what it could do, and the hilt wasn't even warm, but his hands begin to sweat. He hoped he did not drop it in the hay. So
yeah, they drop it in a bucket of water that starts hissing and
it
steaming.
starts hissing and steaming when they chucked it in there when they walked out.
So maybe this woman is just familiar with tainted daggers. You know, she has experience.
Yeah,
it's not her first tainted dagger.
A collector.
Yeah,
a connoisseur of tainted daggers.
Exactly. But also, I was thinking, there's different levels of Dark Friends. And it's clear that Goad is one of the higher level ones because he's in the dream.
Yes,
in the dream that they have after they escape, and he has that when he's when he gets his he's all burnt and whatever in the dream, and he gets his comeuppance and gets sent to the Dark One. But like this, I mean, he's invited to the dream, so he must be of some importance that he's there. You know, he's not just some random dude. And this lady might be also, one of a lieutenant or something. And that they have some sense of darkness. They have some connection to the Dark One, so they may be able to sense these things.
Yeah, she says to them there, you will be honored in the place if you come to the Great Lord of your own free will. But as long as you run, there will be pursuit, and who can tell what will happen then? And that some of them won't be as fair as others because there's jealousy.
Yeah, lots of infighting.
My hounds are jealous and may not be gentle.
Look, I think Beelzemon even says in that dream where he's got Goad there with him, he says he wasn't successful, but he did find you for me. Like, I know where you are now.
Yeah.
And that earns him something, doesn't it? I mean, that something is him in like a crispy form, and then turning to a pile of ash in his clothes. Well done, Goad. Congratulations.
Like right before he turns to a pile of ash, he says, "Okay, here's your reward," and he lets him die. And there's a look of realization on his face right before he turns to ash that he was something he was not expecting. Like a horror goes over his eyes. Like, oh shit, I was wrong.
Oh, I made the bad choice.
Yeah, this is not the reward I was expecting.
She also tells them then after the tying up as well, it's like, now the Madral, wait till the Madral gets here. So, but how would they summon the Madral?
Yeah, and they also meet in dream worlds. I think it's at the end of this book. It's either the epilogue or the prologue for the next book that's also just printed in the first book, where it starts with a meeting of dark friends, hosted by Alzamon or one of the other Forsaken or something. But it's basically like a I want to use like a Eyes Wide Shut or like a masquerade or something. It's a bunch of people with masks walking around, and the man who called himself Bors is I think turns out to be a Whitecloak, if I'm not mistaken. Here's another one that I can correct next week. Loading the barrel for next week's corrections and callbacks. But I think they meet in the world of dreams, and that's how they share information. Peter or someone mentions earlier, we have ways of sharing information, and it's through the world of dreams. Probably through other means as well, but that is at least one that they have.
And also, don't forget their, Dark Friends WhatsApp group that usually comes in handy.
Yeah, their Slack
Man's
channel.
at the inn, quickly come! Emoji, smiley face, devil face.
Check in at the inn.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of confusion happened in this chapter.
Hugely.
I walk away from this chapter going that in media res narrative device is totally unnecessary, and like we just saw, it causes confusion for no payoff. So I do not approve.
Bad, Jordan, bad.
I do like when Matt asks him, how's your legs? Like, we got to get moving. He's like, I can't dance, but if you get me to my feet, I can walk.
I do love the friendship between them. Like how they're helping each other out. Like when he's blind, when Matt's blind and he's shivering and crying, and Rand's hugging him, and then later Matt has to look after Rand when he's shivering and mumbling, and he stays up all night.
They lean on each other a lot, quite literally.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, at the very end of this chapter, then they go, okay, they're getting back on a horse cart with straw, and it says, my name is Hyman Kinch. So that's the person in the start is the person at the end.
I just watched Memento recently, so this makes perfect sense to me.
Don't lie, it doesn't.
Not even Memento could prepare me for this seemingly innocuous chapter.
There's also in this chapter, or one of these many chapters on the road, where they sleep in a hay stack, and that's got a top over it, and they dig a little tunnel into it. All right, they dig a little tunnel and make a little hole where they can sleep. And I'm thinking that sounds awesome. I would love to try that one day.
Like, except for the hay, like getting into Rand's shirt and then poking him between the shoulder blades the next morning. Like, oh God, I was really trying not to get hay in there.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's get to it there. I think is that the next chapter you say that?
It is. It's chapter 34, the last village. It's Rand and Matt. Oh, right. They reach Carrisford after dark. Still traveling after Master Kinch drops them in the previous chapter. He says it's a day's walk from here to Carrisford, but they get there and it's already dark. And as they're moving through the town, I think Matt wants to stop, and Rand is saying, no, we should keep going. And they end up going through the town and not stopping. And that's when they find a haystack. And Matt's like, oh God, not another haystack. And it's another one of those fights. We haven't really mentioned them, but like they often have these moments where one of them is fed up with the other one, or with Matt mostly is fed up with walking a lot. And, he's got this real hopeless sense. Like, what are we even doing? Everyone is dead. There's dark friends everywhere. What the fuck are we even doing trying to fight this thing? And Rand at one point suggests selling the dagger, and that's when Matt gets super defensive and says, why don't you sell your sword, and blah blah blah. He's just being a bit of a stroppy bitch. And then they see this haystack and they sleep in it, and it's when they wake up the next morning. I took a note here that Rand says when they're sleeping in the haystack, or they're preparing to, he says it's not easy to pretend anymore that he was a hero in a story, which I found funny because that's exactly what he is. But so then they wake up the next morning, and it's when they come out of the haystack that they notice quite a lot of people traveling along the road. And it turns out, like, when they start asking a couple of people, it seems like everyone is busy traveling to Caemlyn to go see the false dragon being paraded through the streets. So Matt, typically despondent, wonders whether they'll make it to Caemlyn at all. And Rand's like, well, according to all the things we've been told, we're going to be there in 2 days. And Matt is still like, 2 days? That's 2 more days of constant attack. Like, are we going to survive another 2 days?
That's a lot.
But when they notice all the travelers and stuff, it sort of provides a bit of cover for them. There's a lot of people on the road, so they can be on the road as well. They don't stick out as much as long as Rand hides his sword, and they try not to be too conspicuous. But then, like, merchants also traveling in the other direction are like cracking their whip. Actually, pause. I assume they're traveling in the other direction because they mentioned that the rising sun is behind them. So if they're traveling
I also got that impression.
east
Cruising down the
towards Caemlyn,
road.
then the merchants would be coming from Caemlyn.
Mm.
So these wagon drivers and merchants guards, who sound to be each and every one of them sounds to be a complete dickhead, because they're cracking whips at them and like smacking them with spears on the way. They'd be coming toward them. They'd see them in the road some distance away, and as they come close, like, try and hit them in the head with a whip. And at one point, one of them actually manages to hit Rand. Rand misjudges the length of a whip, and he gets a gash across the top of his eye, and he almost gets sick thinking how close it was to his actual eye. And Matt wants to knock an arrow and shoot an arrow at the guy, and Rand just grabs his arm and says, like, the best thing that's going to happen after that is they kick the shit out of us with their spears, and the worst thing is they kill us on the spot. So anyway, it's a lot of action on the road. Queen's guards come past every now and then. And they actually overhear, like, one of the Queen's guards talking to one of the farmers, and the farmer's saying, can't you do something about these guys? And the guy's like, look, if they steal something, you let us know and we'll come do something. And the guy's like, but they're covering the road. And the guy goes, you've got it fucking easy here. Caemlyn is bursting at the seams with these people, right? Like, this is fine. Just chill the fuck out. The travelers offer this really good cover for them, so they can travel a little bit more freely for the time. And that's when they get to a village at night, where, this chapter is called The Last Village, so this must be the one, marking the end of a long stream of dreary, sad villages.
Filled with dark friends.
Filled with dark friends and potential death. Yeah. So they get to this village at night, and they're sort of slinking through town again, and they're in the shadows. And when they're eyeballing this one inn, they sort of stop, they linger, and they're sussing out the scene outside an inn, because there's two people seeming to have a conversation that is interesting another person who's busy checking the reins and the harnesses on his horse and his cart. And Matt, as a farmer, notices that the guy who's working on the harnesses has checked the harness and then gone back and started at the beginning and rechecked the stuff he's just checked. Obviously listening or eavesdropping on the conversation that these other two people are having. One of them is sort of standing in the light, and the other one is standing in complete darkness. And he can't really make out what they're saying or anything, but the one guy walks away. The guy that was in the darkness sort of walks away, and you can't see him at all, but then he passes through one sort of patch of light outside of a window, and Rand's blood freezes, and he turns to Matt and he just says, "Fade. There's a fade here." And for them, that would be terrifying, right? Dark Friends is one thing, but they know what fades can do. For all they know, a fade just killed Tom a couple of days ago. Yeah. There's a fade right here, talking to people. What the fuck are we going to do? And that's when the innkeeper that the fade was talking to comes back, and the farmer sort of pokes fun at him and goes, weird friends you're talking to in the middle of the night here. The guy sort of tries to defend this quote-unquote friend of his, and he tells the farmer about... He's just saying that he's looking for these two boys, they stole a heron mark sword from him, and they're causing all kinds of trouble, and they're dark friends, and they're followers of the false dragon, and blah, 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 blah. And the farmer's sort of going, oh, cool, so they're young boys, and they've managed to steal a heron mark blade, and they're dark friends, and they're followers of, okay, cool, whatever.
These are busy kids.
Yeah, the innkeeper's sort of put out by it, and he goes, what the fuck are you doing anyway? Like, this idea of yours is insane. And that's when the farmer sort of says, well, I want to travel at night because I don't want to travel on the road full of merchant trains that are just speeding in the wrong direction and Queen's guards that are not really protecting the peace. I want to travel in peace at night, and I want to go to Caemlyn. I've got nothing on my farm to live for. The seasons are so bad. The crops are shit. I'm old. I'm going to die. I want to go to Caemlyn. I want to go see this remarkable thing. And from listening to that, Rand sort of makes a judgment call to at least take a chance and see if he can trust this farmer for a lift. And they approach him, and Matt is obviously super skepty. He is reaching for his dagger and, standing a little ways back. And Rand comes over, and you can tell that the farmer immediately clicks. These these are probably the boys that this dipshit was asking about a
Yes.
couple of minutes ago. And then almost out of spite says, you guys want to come with me, just jump in the van. So they jump in the wagon and they go. And yeah, they travel. Oh, there's one note that I took here where either the innkeeper or someone mentions the boys are not yet 20. So all of our speculation in the beginning about how old the boys are, old enough to marry but not yet 20 is probably spot on. They're probably like 18, 19.
I think there's also now a gold reward on them that Faye tells the ink.
Yeah, like 100 crowns or something.
Yeah.
It's a tidy sum. So they ride with the farmer then, and I remember. So what is his name? Bunt, I think, is his surname. He starts talking. He's just gas bagging, right? He's stoked for company, so he's just laying down, and he name drops a couple names. We'll get to that now, but he also mentions Elida by name, and he's talking about this Aes Sedai that has taken up residence in the palace in Caemlyn and is the most trusted advisor of the queen, and he's a queen's man, but he doesn't approve of this Aes Sedai meddling. He doesn't like the fact that they still send the daughter heir to the White Tower, and he doesn't like the fact that they send the sword prince, or what is the prince of the queen becomes a warder. He doesn't like all of that. But I remember reading this the very first time and thinking, oh wow, another Aes Sedai. Thus far, you only know Moraine.
Yeah.
That's the only Aes Sedai you know. That's the only one you've read about. It's the only one you know anything about. And now there's another one in the palace, and she wields some kind of power over the queen. And I mean, eventually she becomes the Amyrlin seat, and she does wield quite a lot of power, even among other Aes Sedai. But I remember thinking, like, being sort of impressed by the power that this woman wields, not knowing what a raging asshole she turns out to be as well. But as they're riding along, Bunt name drops Elaine, Gawain, Lord Luke, and Tigraine.
Yep.
Like, all things we've been sort of, like stumbling over in the last couple of months, but like it's cool to see, like, oh, okay, cool. These are some major players that are being named by this random ass farmer with half his teeth missing. Like, cool. Talking about Tigraine, that's
he knows his
history.
Sweet. Yeah,
he does. I mean, Tarangale, the Damodrids, the connection with Caerhine, all that stuff. Which is great. So Rand falls asleep. He has another one of his dreams about all the people from Eamon's Field and blah, blah, blah. Like, at this point, I'm sort of like, okay, we get it, Rand. You're sorry about all the, strife you've caused, and you miss home. Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
And then Rand sort of feels this dark force sitting on his chest while he's dreaming, and it turns out to be a crow, and it speaks to him, and it pokes out his eye as well, and he wakes up and he sort of shrieks. And when he wakes up, he feels his eyes, they're both still there, and he looks up and it's daylight, and they're at Caemlyn.
Yeah. A lot of crows poking at eyes. A lot of eye torture, eye mutilation going on in his last few sessions.
Matt's eyes also just under constant attack.
Well, the book is called The Eye of the World.
Yes, it is a theme. It's a motif. So yeah, other than reading the cool sort of name drops and just sparking all the lines of thought that go along with each of those, like, I'm quite a fan of the Trakand kids. They're both very nice to Rand in the beginning, and they also, I mean, Elaine obviously is quite great. She does a lot of cool stuff, and she also falls in love with Rand, becomes one of his harem.
Many wives.
Yes. Yes. And Gawain and the younglings are also great later.
I've forgotten about the younglings.
Vili, I'm not going to spoil this for you now. I mean, I don't think there's anything in the story that leads up to the final sort of stretch of Gawain's story. But new things get introduced in the story right at the end, and Gawain takes advantage of them at his own peril. Like, knowingly, he does things that he knows is going to cause him harm, but he becomes this like unstoppable fucking force of death towards the end. Like, in the last book, he is this like total machine. It's awesome shit. So like reading about him now, you're like, fuck, you become so cool. Just get there, meet them. Yeah, so super exciting. And of course the Lord Luke faux pas that I made last episode became immediately obvious when I read this. I didn't even have to look at the family tree that you found on Reddit, Joe, but I was like, oh yes, oh okay.
Yep.
Yeah, Luke was Tarangale's brother. Oh no, was he Tigraine's brother?
Tigraine's brother. Yes.
Yeah, Rand's uncle.
Indeed. I'll get into that.
Please do when the time comes. Not much else there for you guys.
Nah, traveling.
No.
Got a lucky lift. Opportunists.
Was the innkeeper that spoke to the Fade, was he also thin?
Yes.
Yeah, he was skinny.
I don't know if he was, but he was in my mind.
In my mind, he was. In fact, he looked an awful lot like Samuel Hake does in my mind.
Yeah. Same guy.
who also looks a bit like Paden Fane does in my mind. Like I'm tarring them all with the same brush.
Oh, this does remind me, because they do mention Elaine here. Ach, no,
Mm-hmm.
Elida.
Yes.
A previous chapter as well, I think I may have read about her. But now at the time of recording this, if you're listening to it in the future, the casting for her has not been done for the TV show. There's no actors being cast for Elida.
Not that we know of, no.
No. And I'm wondering why that is.
It's a big casting. So maybe they just, I mean, there's no casting for Elaine either.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, there's a couple of like, yeah, but maybe.
Or Morghese or...
Anyway, I just figured.
Yeah.
A lot of people being cast except her.
I mean, Joe, since you're talking about casting, you sent me that link about the the breadth of the story that is aimed, that looks like from looking at the chapter titles that is going to be contained in the first season, and it looks to, take a pretty big bite, if not all, of the second book as well. Which is, that's going to be hard to stomach for me if they're going to try and squeeze 2 books into 8 episodes, because the first season is also only 8 episodes. So,
look, I was thinking about that too, and I'm thinking, yes, it's 20 years of reading these books. Let's just get through the series as fast and as effectively as possible. Like, I don't mind. Like, I've dedicated a huge chunk of my life to this story.
And continue to do so at this very moment. But they mentioned in that very article, I think Rafe Judkins, the showrunner for the show, says, look, the books are always there for that. You know, if you want that stuff, it's there. You can go get it.
No, he has a
it's
point.
Just not gonna fit in the show, and I'm fine with that.
If they take 2 books per season, that's 7 seasons. That's plenty seasons. All right. Also, speaking of that, I did some calculations on how many chapters we are doing and how we do them every 2 weeks. And it's going to take us 5.5 years to record these podcasts to complete all the books. So strap
if we don't take any breaks.
If we don't take any breaks ever, you're not allowed Christmas off.
Well, what's also relevant to this conversation is the fact that we would have to finish our run of episodes for book 2 before the show comes out. Because the show is going to contain a fair bit of book 2, if not all of it. So we're not stopping for Christmas, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we've got a lot of time on our hands with all of this lockdown going down.
Yes.
For those of you in the future, don't worry about 2020. Just I would love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, Joe, well, why don't you take us to our last chapter then? Caemlyn, the fucking shining light at the end of this dark tunnel.
This dark tunnel of hay bales and farmers' carts and dark friends
just
in every corner.
Discomfort and attack and doubt and infighting. Rand and Matt struggling. It's just like, it was just not fun for me to read this then. It's not fun for me to read this now.
It's over now, Moritz.
It seems to be concentrated into this like one short stretch, which is fine by me.
Yeah, it's done. It's done, man. We can look to the future now. It's done.
The band-aid is off.
Oh, chapter 35, Caemlyn. So yeah, Rand, Matt, and what's the farmer's name that's giving them a lift this time?
Something Bunt. Emily Bunt.
Emily Bunt. This is Rand Bunt arrive at Caemlyn finally, and it starts like the first word is, and here we are at Caemlyn. It's like his outstretched hand presenting the city to them, and Rand's all like, "Oh yay!" And he looks up, and he's just flabbergasted, because all the stories are true. And then when they thought Berylon was a city, he laughs at himself. When he saw Shadar Logoth, nothing compares to this. All right. So, and Bunt actually tells him that this is an Ogier-built city, and at least the inner city and the inner wall, everything else that's spread throughout the ages, obviously, is new added on. But the walls, I had a more in my mind a memory of this city being more yellow, like a sandstone, but it's actually white and gray walls with silver streaks and gold streaks through the. So it's majestic as fuck. It's really the great.
And the wall is 50 feet tall.
Yeah, and that's the new walls, not even the old Ogier ones.
Yes.
And towers surrounding them, and inside there's more towers that are even taller with white domes on them, and just like fantastical, like amazing. Definitely, oh man, green screen for the show here. These VFX artists are going to have a ball. I hope they do it justice. But anyway, it's fantastic. Is the gist of it. But also, this is what the Queen's Guard was saying on the road, that the place is filled to the brim. It's bursting at the seams. People are everywhere. The boys are actually covering their ears with their hands. There's so much noise because they're first going through the marketplace to get into the city, and everybody is screaming their wares, and there's cows mooing and sheep buying. And he puts all the onomatopoeia there in that book, in this part of the chapter. Yes, I know the sounds that cows and sheep make, but anyway, it's noisy, and they're going through it all. They just flabbergasted, and as they're coming in through there, they're also talking about how scarce everything is. Like there's no food in the city as well. The trees are dead. The grass is brown. There's like it's also but the people are just trying to not notice it. Just pretending it's not there. Because Logain's there. They've got something to look for. All these people, all these travelers coming in. Also, lots of other young men like Rand's age. So I think that they're kind of hidden from the Dark Frame. Yeah. Everyone looks like them. A bunch of country bumpkins with dirty clothes, coming to visit Caemlyn to look at the false dragon, to come and get a look at him.
Safety in numbers.
Yeah, exactly. So they're kind of hidden here, and so when they get into the city, Bunt just lets them off because he's not going further, and they start on foot. But he does give them a warning. He does tell Rand, like, look, dude, cover up that sword, because you're going to get caught. That's going to draw attention. And finally, after 35 chapters, Rand actually, because he looks around and the people are walking around with their swords on, but they wrap them in cloth. I suppose it's kind of like a safety, so that they're not people ripping out.
I think they don't say it in this chapter, but again, more ammo for next week to correct. But I think it like there are two factions of differing opinions. Like they might be backing, different players in the royal family. Like having a red cloth with white bindings means something different to having a white cloth with red bindings. So I think you are actually saying something by having your sword covered with a specific color scheme.
All right. I did not.
That could be totally made up.
We'll find out next week on the next exciting episode.
There's your cliffhanger.
Or it's wrong.
Many episodes of that coming.
I mean, I got this idea because I know later on they visit another city in one of the later books where they have to wrap their swords in a fine wire so that they can't.
It's in far matting.
In far matting, yeah. So I thought maybe this is another thing where they wrap it in cloth. Okay, perhaps not. Okay, apparently not. And this is also where we see Matt is really down in the dumps by the time we get you. He's not happy about everything because Rand is so excited. We're here. We finally made it. We're going to meet Egwene and Moraine and everything's going to be okay. And Matt says, like, if you ask me, they're as dead as the Gleeman. Like such an offhand comment. And Rand's smile just fades off his face. Like all his happiness is immediately gone. Like, oh, dick, ruined my day. But yeah, so Matt's getting worse. He puts that finally, he covers up the heron mark on his sword at least with this rags. That's fine. I'm just glad they finally did it, so that they don't have to draw too much attention for themselves. And the city is packed. They get approached a couple of times by a bunch of weird dudes trying to sell them shards of Logain's sword, like memorabilia. Like everyone's trying to take advantage of everyone. Like he mentions as well, like he's been sold that they've tried to sell him enough shards of Logain's sword to make 2 swords. So yes, everyone's trying to con you. So, but they're just like, no.
And other bumpkins are coming up to them, asking them for directions.
Yeah, like no. So they're asking directions. They're trying to find because when they left Tom, he told them to go to Caemlyn and and go to the Queen's Blessing, where Basil Gill is, alleged Basil. Faulty Basil.
Basil Faulty. I mean, Basil Gill.
Yeah, Basil Gill. So yeah, they start looking and they're asking, and they have no idea. People don't know. People are being rude and telling them to fuck off, and some people are more accommodating. Eventually, they find their way to this place of sanctuary, and they find old Basil Gill there as well. And they come in. The inn's not too busy yet. It's in the middle of the early morning still. But everyone seems friendly and the place is clean, and Basil's got a big belly, so everything's everything's hunky-dory, as you say. So everything's looking good. And they tell him, like, look, Basil, we were sent here by Tom. And they tell the story about how Tom saved them. And they're pretty truthful, but they leave out some details about fades and trollocs and whatnot. They don't want to bring down the wrath of Shaitan on these people, on this poor man. So yeah. He's like, but he doesn't believe that Tom's dead. And this is another one of our inklings that Tom is more than he appears to be. He's like, yeah, I'll believe Tom's dead when I see his body. I've known him a long time. But anyway, any friend of Tom's is a friend of mine. So I suppose you boys are hungry and you want some food. I'll get you some beds. And it's like, oh, finally they've met someone who's going to look out for them. And he offers them some food. I think he's just like, you boys look like your bellies are gnawing at your spines, like they're so hungry. And he does take them into accommodation and give them some respite. And mentions Matt also mentions something about Aes Sedai, and you go, Shaitan take them all, the crows can take them all, the Shale Ghul and stuff. And he's like, whoa, come out back and let me explain to you how things work in Caemlyn. Like, probably going back to the factions they were talking about. Like, there's people in the city who are very, very protective of the Queen. And if the Queen likes Aes Sedai, they like Aes Sedai. So if you got any opinions, keep them to yourself. Like, stay low, your sword's covered. That's good. Step one. Next up, cover your mouth, shut the fuck up, just keep your profile. And that's where they start hanging out. And he tells them a story about Tom and a bit of his history. And this
his checkered past.
So he goes like, yeah, well, tells them that Tom in the past was court barred in Caemlyn, and it wasn't just like any Gleeman. You may have noticed that he thinks very highly of himself, in though most Gleemen do, but Tom more than others, because he has this past, and he was once at one point the lover of Queen Morgase. He doesn't say lover, but he says a bit friendlier than he should have been, which of course. So my memories on this were correct. He was canoodling with the Queen. So anyway, this is
there's a stretch later. There's a stretch later in the books where Elaine is like trying to figure out whether Tom is her dad or not.
Oh yeah, oh Jesus. So yeah, but this all leads us into a whole bag of worms, I suppose you could call them. It's a can of worms, right? And a bag of cats. I don't know. Anyway, there's a bunch
of frogs.
A bag of frogs with a can of worms inside it. So to explain all of this backstory and the fact that we've mentioned Luke and Tigraine earlier, they popped up, little name drops over there. This is the whole family tree kind of thing about how this all fits in. So, and how the Queen had an affair with Tom if she was married and had kids and all that, like how it all fits in. So before Morgase was Queen, it was Tigraine who was the Queen. Now, Caemlyn, if for the people who don't remember or don't know, is a matriarchal society. They have queens. They don't have kings. So it's always been queens. And Tigraine was the queen before Morgase. She's the one who, after marrying Tarangale, was her husband, who became king. They had Galad, or Galadriel is his full name, but old Galad. Yeah. So she had Galad, and then afterwards she disappeared and ran away and went over the spine of the world, and she became the Spear Maiden. She married and fell in love with one of the clan leaders, Janduin, and became pregnant, and then ran back over the wall during the Caemlyn War, and had Rand on the side of Dragon Mount in the snow that night, that fateful evening. So technically, Galad, as we all know, and Rand are half brothers, and Luke was Tigraine's brother. And he's the one that, also disappeared. He went north, didn't he? He went into Shale Ghul.
He goes to I think he goes into the Blight.
Yeah, he goes into the Blight, and he becomes Slayer, which the wolves know all too well. So yeah, he becomes some sort of dream world master.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a crazy hunter type.
Crazy hunter type dude. So he basically just lives in the dream world. So yeah.
Mm.
So Luke is Rand's uncle, and Tigraine his
Yeah.
mother. Yeah. So after she went away, Tarangale, the king that was married to Tigraine earlier, the father of Galad, he eventually marries Morghese because her house is then the Trakan house. Trakan, not Damondred, becomes the leading house. And he canoodles his way in there to try and stay in power and marries Morghese and has 2 other kids, Gawain and Elaine. So it was confusing for me at one point as well, trying to figure this all out. Like, all right, so Rand isn't related to Elaine. Thank God. This looks weird, but he's not. He's not in any way related bloodlines wise, but he is up there in the royal family of Keirhine.
This is not Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, let's not go down that one.
That does not fly here.
Exactly. So yeah, that's how it all happens. So after Tarangale dies, Morghese is left a widow, and this is where Tom comes into the picture.
Yeah.
So he was caught by
a young widow.
Yeah, she was a young widow. She had kids, and Tom was very smooth, and he likes to dance, and he could juggle. Obviously, very sexy things. So juggling always
Kissing blue eyes.
Exactly. So then they had this thing, and there's and then Basil's explaining as well, like better not mention Tom either around anybody, because when Tom's nephew got messed up, all involved with the Aes Sedai and all of that cuck, and eventually stilled or gentle, sorry, and then died. When that happened, he left to go and help his nephew, and that was the same time that he was with the Queen Morghese. But he didn't say anything. He just left her in the middle of the night and disappeared, which of course pissed her off completely. And also he went and meddled in the Aes Sedai business to save his kid, which pissed off Elida, who was the Queen's advisor. So like he's not welcome in Caemlyn at all. Also,
burn some powerful bridges.
Totally. Also, when he left, he came back later because while he was gone, the Queen sent Gareth Bryn, to go and find him, the Queen's Guard, the head of the Queen's Guard. And while he was away, Tom came back into the city, said some things he shouldn't have said, got into a fight with Morghese, made things worse, and then left again. Gareth could come back. So now Gareth is also pissed off because it makes him look like an idiot because he couldn't catch Tom. While he was away, Tom came back, caused more cuck, and then left again. So between Morghese and Elida and Gareth, Tom is not welcome in the city. No. But yes, so that's the story behind where Rand comes from, what happened with the family. I hope this makes sense to some people listening to this. But you can Google this stuff and look at the family tree if you want. But yeah,
what tripped me up was the similarity between the names Tigraine and Tarangale.
Exactly. That is very confusing. I have it open on my laptop now so that I don't confuse them because I'm just looking at it. Otherwise, yes, I would confuse it.
And the fact that Tarangale has the same surname as Moraine, so like the names and the families, they sort of start blending together. Especially if you're reading the book the first time, like some of these names wouldn't mean anything to you. I don't think you know Moraine's surname at this point, but like it's a lot of history to absorb. And would not mean an awful lot to you unless you knew that Tigraine was, Rand's mom who became a shield maiden and all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's the whole family business there. And the next chapter, which we'll get into the next one, is awesome. And I went ahead and read a little bit.
Because, oh, no.
Oh, dude, it just gets better and better. So finally we passed all the lying on the backs of carts with farmers, and we're into some meaty stuff in the city. Did I miss anything from that chapter?
No, that's about it.
Yeah, it seems like you got it all there.
And some more.
And Rand also, when he's talking to Basil Gill and talking about Tom, he doesn't say, oh, we don't know what happened to Tom. And Basil says, oh, I'm sure he's fine. It's like Rand flat out says, Tom is dead.
Yeah.
And Basil still says, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
Like Rand he didn't seem unsure about what he was saying. And Basil was still saying, no, I don't think he's dead.
Well, he knows Tom very well. He doesn't know Rand from a bar of soap. So, yeah.
True. Yeah, I like that. So, favorite moment, guys, in this stretch, man, it was slim pickings.
Indeed, it was.
We're all going to have the same one. Let's tell.
Villy, okay, why don't you go first, Villy? You get first pick.
Oh, first pick. Yo, this definitely just gonna be lightning strike.
It wasn't my top 3 in my
Yeah.
shortlist.
No, it's that is a epic point there, and especially now second reading, understanding really what's happening. That it's not blind bloody
Mm,
luck. That it
yeah,
was. It's a little bit more than that. But yeah, it is slim pickings. Other than that, there's been a few moments, but slim pickings.
that is one that is. It represents a cool visual element. You know, there's action. I don't want to sound morbid, but there's death.
Death.
Like people, Rand takes out a bunch of enemies with
Hey,
an area of effect spell.
there must always be death in these books. There is always
Yes,
death.
death is entertaining. Didn't hear that from me.
Nah.
How about you, Joe?
I'm going to go with that quaint little moment in the farmhouse with the family.
Okay,
Yeah,
nice.
when the girl gives Rand the eyes, and the mother, that
Old Elsie.
realization of the mother when she looks up from her knitting is like, hey, what? No, 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 not on
Hang
my
on.
watch. You're
Not in
sleeping with
my
me.
farmhouse.
Yeah, not in my farm. And I think the mother as well is not concerned of Rand taking advantage. She looks at her daughter's face. She can see that lust in her eyes. And she's like, no, you're sleeping in my room tonight, girl.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was funny. It made me. That was like the only time I giggled in these 6 chapters.
Yes, that, and then the next morning with Matt making fun of Rand
Mm.
Yes, the whole
because of it.
scenario too. Yeah, with the extent.
Yeah.
And you?
I had 2. I very much enjoyed this last little section with Basil Gill regaling Rand and Matt with Tom's story about how, you know, he's a bard and he canoodles the queen. He's totally punching above his weight, and he manages it. And then the fact that you also learn later what an absolute like military genius Gareth Bryn is, and that he himself commanded the troop of soldiers that went to go put Tom in shackles, and then during the time that he was away, Tom snuck back into the castle and had a chat with Morgase and pissed her off, and then disappeared again. And that still rankles with him, like don't say Tom's name around you because Gareth Bryn is still around, and
Yep.
if he knows anything, that still sticks in his craw. And then the other one that I really liked, I know I'm cheating, but they were both sort of such low level ones, is that little moment that Elias has with Perrin right in the beginning when he tells him about the axe. He says, "You really hate it that much? Well, that's a good thing. It's while you hate it, you will be effective with it. And when you stop to hate it, that's when you throw it as far as you can and you run in the opposite direction." That was really cool because Elias is also pretty fucking great.
Oh, indeed, he is.
He dominates.
He does. Okay, wow, Joe, you were spot on.
Was all right.
Longest recording yet.
Oh, when I was looking at my notes, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a long one.
I think that they are getting steadily longer
as we get more comfortable and more into it. Yeah.
It's good though. Love it.
Words.
Yeah, loads. Okay, so in our next episode, we will be covering chapter 36, which is Web of the Pattern, through to the end of chapter 41, which is Old Friends and New Threads. Okay, so then that marks the end of this episode, guys. Well done. This was quite a marathon session. I honestly did not expect this to go as long. When I was doing my chapters, which admittedly were the thinnest 2 chapters in this batch of 6, I thought, oh God, we're going to be struggling for content here. Exact opposite, which is great.
Yeah, totally.
So if anyone picked up on one of the 20,000 mistakes we purposefully threw into the mix here, just please write to us at the bloodandashespodcast.com website. You can leave a comment there, which will make it directly to myself, or you can email me at moritz@bloodandashespodcast.com. And with that, we will see you guys next time. Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Cheerio. Remember to walk in the light, everyone.
Whitecloak.
Whitecloak's going to get you.
Laters.
Yeah.